What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, April 10th, 2020. It's Good Friday, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The Lady Claire will be with us in hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And I'm going to ask the callers to try and keep their calls very short. I've been getting a lot of emails from people complaining about how certain callers will go on for 20 minutes or more. And so we're going to work on the honor system for right now rather than enforce a hard limit. But if you can just think ahead of time what you want to say, get on the phone, say it, and get off to make room for other people. And more importantly, to make room for the news, because I'm not really getting to do as much of that as I would like to do. Anyway, as I said, it's Good Friday today, although probably those guys up on the crosses didn't think it was particularly good for them. And they had a Good Friday service at the Notre Dame Cathedral, which is still under repair from its fire almost a year ago here. And it looks like Easter weekend may be rough for some people. They're predicting thunder showers here in Indiana. More than 70 million people prepare for severe weather that could bring damaging winds to the northeast, damaging winds, rather, to the northeast states. And of concern, of course, are all those field hospitals, those tents that have been set up in places like New York that could very easily get blown away. All righty. Now, Laura Ingraham did an interview with Bill Barr where it came on out that Durham is not writing a report, that he's actually building multiple criminal cases having to do with this whole Russiagate nonsense that they tried to take the president down with. Now, a lot of people are looking at Dr. Fauci. And, of course, Fauci is the one who advised Trump to shut the entire country down, throw everybody out of work. And, of course, the liberals and the liberal media are out there trying to say that was a bad thing, bad Trump, bad orange man. It turns out Fauci is a Hillary Clinton fan, that he's written quite a few letters to her of a very encouraging nature, and he's a donor. And so probably the agenda to somehow use the coronavirus panic to damage Donald Trump, he's part of it. He appears to be part of it. Now, Barr went on to say that there's absolutely no basis for the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And that this basically, you know, then candidate Donald Trump was under investigation by the FBI. And William Barr told Laura Ingraham there was no basis. There was no reason for there to be an investigation. It was just, you know, get rid of him, damage him somehow, because Hillary was supposed to be the president. Now, in an interview with Fox Business Network's Maria Bartiromo, pardon me, on Monday, Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus said that America might have been much more prepared for the coronavirus if Democrats and the media had spent more time focusing on the disease in Wuhan than on the futile effort to throw President Donald Trump out of office. Marcus said that he was repulsed by the Democrats and their unending focus on partisan politics at a time when the country should have been united against a common threat. Now, remember that story that came on out saying that the Pentagon warned Donald Trump about COVID-19 last November? That came out on ABC. The Pentagon has responded to that saying, no, it didn't happen. But the earliest Donald Trump knew about it was January, and ABC is once again out there putting out fake news. Because, of course, the liberals are out there saying, well, Trump knew about it in November and he failed to do anything. No, he didn't know about it. He was not informed about it till January. And the other false news that has now been discredited is the claim that Trump disbanded the pandemic office. And apparently the official who once ran that program dismissed this talking point. And former National Security Council advisor Tim Morrison was interviewed in the Washington Post, and he said, no, the White House didn't dissolve its pandemic response office. I was there. It has been alleged by multiple officials of the Obama administration, including in the Post, that the president and his then National Security Advisor, John Bolton, dissolved the office at the White House in charge of pandemic preparedness because I led the very directorate assigned that mission, the Counterproliferation and Biodefense Office, for a year and then handed off to another official who still holds the post. I know the charge is specious. So more false news. Isn't it rather shameful how comfortable we've all become with lying or with liars? It really is. It's like it's a given. We're a society of liars. We have a media full of liars. We have politics full. Well, we expect politicians to lie. All righty. Brianna Joy Gray, the now former National Press Secretary for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, has suggested on social media that Democrats might replace former Vice President Joe Biden as their nominee. This is continuing a pattern of stories and leaks of this same theme, that the Democrats don't want to go into November with Biden as their banner carrier because of his clear mental deterioration. Somebody was joking that he could lose his car on a 3-tier parking lot and never find it again. Big question is, who are they going to get to replace him? They don't really have anybody who's strong, fortunately, except for Hillary Clinton. And I'm expecting that she's going to make an end run to try and become the nominee. And the place where that will happen will be the national convention, even if it's being held virtually. Okay, now, right now, Trump and his people are having their coronavirus briefing. They had it a little bit early today so everybody can get home to their Good Friday dinners. And they're talking about when they're going to reopen the economy for business. And everybody seems to be focusing on May 1st. And this is kind of in line with that prediction I made the other day that said by the end of April, we're going to be told that this is all over, the coronavirus has been defeated, and everybody can go back to work. And, you know, huzzah, huzzah, it wasn't as bad as we were warned it was going to be, therefore we're successful. So even Mnuchin is saying that the U.S. could reopen for business in May. Now, one of the problems that we're dealing with here right now are all the evictions that are taking place out there. Even in the states that declared a moratorium on evictions for renters who couldn't pay their rent this month, which is about 1/3 of them. About 1/3 of all renters in the entire country could not make that April payment. And as mass evictions loom, we're going to have an unprecedented housing crisis. Where are these people going to move to when they're evicted? Are they going to join the ranks of the homeless? Hope not. Somebody has to enforce that no eviction policy. Now, some landlords are being very cool about it. One landlord literally forgave all of his 200 tenants their April rent. Said, stay home, take care of your family. You're rent-free for this month. Other landlords are saying, pay me when you can. Pay what you can, when you can. We'll work it out down the road. We'll make it work. Because it's a lot of problems to evict people and have to refurbish the apartment. You know, a lot of people, when they're evicted, they'll trash the place on their way out. You don't want to have to go through that. Canada has started rolling out a $4,000 per person direct deposit payment en masse. And that's a grant. It's not a loan, the way the U.S. coronavirus relief is. That $1,200 or $2,400 that you're getting is a advance on your 2020 tax refund. They're not giving it to you. Technically a loan. Just think about that for a while. Gold is soaring again. The Fed's actions this morning mean the free markets are dead. The Fed has made it clear it will not tolerate prudent and responsible investing. Right now, the Federal Reserve is making a power grab. They're taking control of the bond market. Almost like they're starting to think maybe they should be a part of the U.S. government. Now, the coronavirus has left at least 10% of America's workforce unemployed. 6.6 million filed new claims in 1 week, bringing the 3-week jobless total to 16.8 million. Now, that's newly unemployed. That does not include all the people who are considered long-term chronically unemployed, which is another close to 30%. So this nation is in serious, serious trouble. We're at depression levels of unemployment and poverty. 60% of Americans are saying they will last less than 3 months living off their savings as unemployment skyrockets. A lot of people are saying they're going to start selling their blood plasma and sperm to make ends meet. That's pretty desperate. Well, the blood plasma, I mean, I used to donate to the Red Cross, and then I had a bad experience with one person with a needle. My entire arm had lividity for like a month. Anyway, the OPEC confusion may have been resolved. The last holdout was Mexico, and at the last minute, they knuckled under and said they're going to go along with this reduction in output. So apparently oil turned negative after Russia and the Saudis agreed to cap output at 8.5 million barrels per day for 2 months. Trying to get those oil prices back up again because everybody along that whole supply chain is in serious, serious trouble, as is the shale oil industry. But Mexico folded and agreed to join OPEC plus output cut after a dramatic objection. More than 240,000 Chinese companies have declared bankruptcy in the first 2 months of 2020. And they're all struggling since COVID-19 emerged at the beginning of the year, forcing stores, restaurants, and factories to cut down on hours or completely shut down. Over in Yemen, they've confirmed their first COVID-19 case. Officials are saying brace for millions. Now, in what is probably an uncharacteristic move, the Saudis have declared a 2-week ceasefire in Yemen so that Yemen can deal with the outbreak of COVID-19. Probably they don't want to catch it themselves. They don't want their people to catch it, but at least it's a 2-week ceasefire. Gives everybody a chance to catch their breath and fix things up. The U.S. is continuing to push for their regime change in Venezuela. The latest talk is that Maduro has to go and Guaido has to go, and they're both going to be shoved aside in favor of a new, as yet unnamed, pro-U.S. leader. The emphasis is on pro-U.S. They want a pro-U.S. regime running Venezuela. So far, neither Guaido or Maduro have said they'll go along with this. The U.S. declared a regime change in early 2019, saying Maduro has to go. Maduro is still there. Just something to think about here. Over in Brazil, we're continuing to see more machinations leading to the overthrow of Bolsonaro, this time involving the military. The political situation is getting worse every single day, and apparently the way in which Bolsonaro is managing the effects of the pandemic has been causing concern and fury in all sectors of Brazilian society. All the bases that have so far guaranteed Bolsonaro's power are being shaken by his policies. And the group that guaranteed the inviolability of his mandate, the military, is increasingly distant from the president's projects. Okay, hard times for U.S. forces in northeast Syria. The army prepares for an Idlib escalation. And just as we went to broadcast, we got word that apparently the Syrian Arab Army has engaged ISIS in a major, major fight. Okay. Meanwhile, the military, apparently unconcerned with the virus, is asking for $20 billion to deter Chinese aggression. Now, this is over and above Donald Trump's whopping $740 billion 2020 military budget request submitted to Congress in February, which includes the largest dollar ask since World War II, adjusted for inflation. Additionally, the Pacific Command's wish list requests an additional $18 billion for years 2022 through 2026. And the wish list that they have there is military funding for partner nations and a $1.6 billion defensive ring around Guam in order to deter Chinese aggression in the region. The wars are still going on, and I note with some concern that both China and Russia, the bashing, is not only continuing, it's escalating. It's getting worse. They can't be thinking of starting up yet another war while our economy is reeling from the coronavirus, but apparently somebody is. Apparently the war hawks are out there saying, virus, schmirus, let's just go kill some people. I hope that we're going to get through Easter Sunday without some kind of a big bang to be blamed on, oh, Iran or Russia or China or a combination of all three. But as I mentioned earlier, I've noticed there's been a lot of programming, pushing religion and church attendance and keeping the faith, and on places like Fox News, which normally don't do that kind of programming. Over in Israel, Palestinian farmers near Hebron have been attacked by settlers and Israeli forces trying to drive them from their farmlands, trying to force them out of their lands, including the use of tear gas and concussion grenades. And a lot of the Palestinian farmers suffered the toxic effects of tear gas inhalation, which is nasty, nasty stuff. The U.S. confirms deployment of Patriot missiles in Iraq. Iran prepares for conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of war talk out there, a lot of war talk. Okay, interesting little development. You're probably already aware that some time ago, the United States set up a kangaroo court to basically say Iran was responsible for acts of terror that harmed the families of victims here in the United States of America, and they made this declaration that Iran owed so many billions of dollars to these families of these terror victims. No proof was provided that Iran had anything to do with it. 9/11 was in there, I might add. And apparently the United States went over to Europe to try and have Iranian funds blocked and handed over to Washington to compensate the so-called victims of terror. But apparently Iran took the case to court, and they won. And the governor of the Central Bank of Iran, also known as Bank Markazi, said the country has won the legal battle in Europe to dismiss a U.S. attempt to have these Iranian funds seized. So it's been nullified. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, if you've got proof that Iran did something, that's one thing. But you can't just go on out and say, we accuse Iran, give us their money. Not the way it's supposed to work here. Okay. Apparently, Monsanto and the German chemical giant BASF were aware for years that their plan to introduce a new agricultural seed and chemical system would probably lead to damage on many U.S. farms. Risks were downplayed even while they planned how to profit off farmers who would buy Monsanto's new seeds just to avoid damage unearthed during a recently successful $265 million lawsuit brought against both firms by a Missouri farmer. The documents, which date back more than a decade, also reveal how Monsanto opposed some third-party product testing in order to curtail the generation of data that might have worried regulators. And in some of the internal BASF emails, employees appeared to joke about sharing voodoo science and hoping to stay out of jail. So what they're talking about here is Roundup and the Roundup Ready seeds. And yet another corporation putting out a product knowing it was dangerous, knowing it would cause damage. I'm glad they lost that lawsuit. Of course, to a company like Monsanto and BASF, $250 million, it's not that punitive, but I imagine there'll be other lawsuits as well. Okay, here's a story that came on out of Zero Hedge, asking if America is preparing for civil war. And what they're doing is they're looking at this jump in gun purchases that has really taken off since the start of the coronavirus. And probably a lot of people, especially the gun grabbers, are saying, what does one have to do with the other? But apparently people are very concerned about protecting themselves in their home. We know that a lot of, shall we say, lesser crimes, breaking and entry, burglary, the police aren't even bothering with those anymore because they don't want to run the risk of being exposed to coronavirus. So apparently the jump in sales has no precedent in recorded history. Actual gun purchases aren't tracked in the U.S., but the FBI system is largely considered a proxy for sales by the firearms industry, and the table shows a 41% surge year over year and a 33% spike month over month. We're going to take a break for commercial. We'll be right back after these few words. And hello, America. Welcome back to our show here, and a reminder that Republic Broadcasting is conducting a fundraising drive right now, and they really do need your help here. So maybe instead of having quite so many Easter eggs, you could find it in your heart to send a little something for our Easter basket, because we've been good little boys and girls this year so far. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call now from Martin in California. Hello, Martin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I've been listening to you since, 2003 when you first were on RBN, and then you went over to Genesis, and now you were on Saturdays, I think, at RBN for a while. Is my memory correct?
No, I've never done a Saturday show. I started actually with Genesis 2007, I think. Alex Jones brought me onto the network. And then I went to RBN, then I went back to Genesis, and now I'm back at RBN again.
Okay, so my timeline is all up. But I did start reading your website back in 2003.
Oh, yeah, that goes back to 1994.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just heard you say that the $1,200 tax credit tax stimulus payment is going to be an advance on your federal income tax refund. Did I hear that correctly?
You heard that correctly. And if you've got certain outstanding obligations like child support, the funds will be seized for that.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but since that was the first I heard of it, I looked it up, and according to Forbes, the statement that this is calling it an advance refund is wrong. The answer is no. Let me read the Forbes, just one sentence. Bottom line, your 2020 tax return and any refund you're due when you file that return in early 2021 will not be affected by the check you're getting now.
I stand corrected.
So, go ahead and I can send you the link to the Forbes article. I trust Forbes more or less for this. They're not, known for misinformation, financially especially. So.
Well, the problem is there is a lot of misinformation being thrown around, and even I can get tripped up sometimes.
Yeah, I think they're correct in this case, and I'm glad you're wrong because that could cause a lot of fear and panic amongst people getting it. It is a little bit more complicated if you read the article. In other words, they will actually it will show on your tax return. It'll be a fully refundable tax credit, so it'll go back and forth. It'll show as income, then it'll show as a deduction. So I can see why the confusion exists, right?
Yes.
But Forbes looked at it and says, you don't have to worry. This is not going to come off of your refund. There's something else that I've written to you about in the past, and that's the definition of the labor non-participation rate.
Yes.
You refer to it often, and it's a number that's somewhere around 30%. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, this pool of people is not where the unemployed are located, right? This is where the retirees, the housewives, and, as baby boomers get older, of course, this percentage increases. And I sent you an analysis of the real unemployment rate, which is not what they say. I agree with you there. It is approximately double what they say, going back decades, right? It's always had this, part-time workers and people that are dropped out of the unemployment because they quit trying and all that. You are partially correct, but this whole 30% figure was something that was promulgated by Sean Hannity during the Obama administration, and he was wrong. he's often wrong, by the way. I do not trust Sean Hannity not to exaggerate, although, I like him in some ways. But he, I don't like his warmongering either. So there are more reliable sources than him. And of course, people have continued to use that on into the Trump presidency. But I can resend you that email. It gets a little complicated.
Please do. Please do.
And I just wanted to, I know you always seek the truth, and I've respected you for years and years. So I just, when I heard the thing about the stimulus check coming off your refund, I just wanted to correct you on that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad they're not going to do that. And I forget exactly where I read that. Anyway, we got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, a European group has announced they will soon release technology for smartphones so people can find out if they've come in contact with anyone infected with coronavirus. It sounds like a really good idea. The problem with it is there are people walking around who've got the coronavirus who don't know it. So unless there's some sort of mandated testing procedure, and they can lock the resulting information into the smartphone, because that's how it works. I mean, this technology is going to ping smartphones around you, and if it gets a signal back saying the owner of this phone has coronavirus, then it notifies you. So anyway, we're going to take another phone call. Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
It's Dr. Doom and Gloom, according to some of your listeners. Changing my name to Mr. Doom.
Okay. Victor?
Mike, when I call in, it's only my opinion, but I'm using some rational thinking about this. I watched Trump's press conference today, and, according to him, the economy was doing great until this virus, which he never mentioned the repo market, which that's a different day of a discussion because, it wouldn't be doing anything with the repo market if the economy was great, right? They wouldn't be pumping money into the bank's liquidity problems if everything was good. But having said that, Mike, I have to take credit from it. He mentioned Sweden. And we know Sebastian from Sweden calls in, and I hope more people from Europe call in. Like, where is the people from the UK calling in? They used to call in. And what about that gentleman from the Netherlands? I'd like to hear from him. I want to know, where's James from Tokyo? I want to hear what's going on over there. We need information sharing, what's going on in different, where we have listeners calling in from all around the world, Mike, because Trump talked about Sweden. And somebody asked him that, like they got the schools open and the restaurants open and this or that. And he basically said, they're in bad shape. You saw that report where like 100 people a day are dying. It's going to be more, Mike. They're run out of room. Mike, that is if we lift our economy. As a rational thinking person, you got the economy closed already. Now, if your government was on the ball and had some kind of non-bureaucracy, those checks should have been already, not in the mail, but, already to you, digitally. But the problem is, if you think about this, if you lift the economy up without masks and gloves, excluding, he also mentioned Denver, there was a spike in Denver, and you heard about the meat packing plants, right, with the sick people?
Yes.
They got to close those, right? They're going to close those meat. Like, if you lift the lockdown, because like I said, and some of your listeners disagree with me, I think it should all be locked down. The governor should be told lock down everything. If you lift that now, like they want to do maybe May 1st, what do you think is going to happen? You can't, I keep going back, you can't do that. You're already locked down. If you lift it, and things are going to go wrong because, you look at Sweden, that's how it's going to be, or Italy and Spain, you're going to close it back up. How will you look? You'll look undecisive. You won't. That people would be saying, because the mainstream media, the liberal media, will use that against him, right? They'll use it either but you can't open it and then it's going to go wrong and then reclose it. That's why I know people disagree with me. I think you should keep it closed. Get people checks. No mortgages, no car payments. Get people checks to survive. Enough to where you can get masks and gloves to at least a sector to get them back working. That's how you do it, slowly. But you just can't just say everybody go back to school and go to work. As a thinking person, that's just wrong, right? You just can't do that. Because
how do you end it? How do you? We can't spend the rest of our lives like this.
No, but that's probably the conundrum they're in. But if you do lift it, because it's only been what? Has it been even a month? It's about a month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it can drag on, but I don't know how to end it. But if you don't, I'd say prolong it for at least another few months, because they got to get more testing out. They got to do more testing. The gloves and the masks are the most important. In New Jersey, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but no shoes, no shirts was the original no service. Now it's no shoes, no shirts, no gloves, no masks, no service. And I know Washington, D.C. did the same thing, and also they closed fish markets, vegetable markets, or whatever in D.C., I believe. But that maybe, like I said, the mask and the gloves go a long way in helping to slow, not stop the spread, but slow the spread. Like wearing gauze, which like that is not going to stop the very fine particles. But it does slow down the spread, because the spread is going to happen no matter what.
Yes.
But yeah, Mike, without mask and gloves, I just don't see how they can. If you were a teacher that you're in your 50s at school, would you feel comfortable going back? Would you be comfortable going back to school, teaching kids that are just talking or sneezing? That's pretty hard to take. I'm just using that as an example, but or a bus driver. What about a bus driver? Or a train operator? Like I said, in the Midwest where there's not as much population, if they can get masks and gloves to them first, or the important sectors of the economy, that's one thing. But I don't hear any. Do you hear any talk about that at all? I don't see anything.
Well, yeah, actually, I have. They're talking about activating different parts of the economy at different times. That they're going to let more of the essential workers go back to work, and then probably not quite essential but still very important workers, and they'll work their way down to when they finally get to people who are doing something that really doesn't impact our nation all that much, and they'll let them go back. They're talking about a phased reactivation of the economy.
I hope so, because if they just do it all willy-nilly, we're effed. There's just no way you can do it all at once. It's impossible. And, Mike, I'd say the masks and the gloves should go to the people who work on mass transit, not only the firemen and the policemen, and obviously the military. I see military people without masks and gloves. I'm like, some of the National Guard people, why? But, mass transit, if you're, train operator, right, in a subway or a bus driver, anything like that, if you were, what about the restaurants, Mike? I think they're going to get killed, the restaurants and stuff. How can you, Mike, I usually, I don't eat out too often, but when I do, I'll get something from McDonald's or Burger King or a Chinese. Mike, I'm not getting no takeout. I don't know if any of your listeners, but I'm sorry, but I don't know where that food is coming from, or somebody's got gloves, mask, or coughing on it. I don't know, but I haven't got takeout since this whole thing started. Have you?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another area of the restaurants or the bars. The bars, grills, whatever you call it, or what about the big stadiums, football games, baseball games, stuff like that, music events.
It's going to take a while for people to be comfortable to go back to those environments again. Anyway, listen, Dustin, I've let you talk enough here. I'm trying to keep the call short so we can do more news. So I'm going to let you go, and we're going to switch over to John in Tennessee. Aloha, John. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you, Michael. You know, my work hours have changed, so I haven't been able to listen that often. I'm listening to, I think it was Dustin. So you're going to have, if you've already covered this, I apologize. I just tuned in. You are familiar with Event 201, ID 2020, and 5G, correct?
I'm familiar with 201. I'm familiar with all three. I'm not sure that they're connected.
Well, the ID 2020, you go to PWC, ID 2020 on YouTube. There's about a 3-minute video. Very well done. They're talking about 1.5 billion people on the earth without a legal identity. It's time for those that have to help those that have not. Can you say socialism? Because without the legal identity, you will be isolated, socially isolated, and unable to participate in the economy. And the ID 2020 is a vaccine, according to PWC, that contains a nanochip that gives an identification. And the 5G is most definitely connected to Corona, because 5G, and again, I'm a former weapons mechanic from the military, 5G is 60 gigahertz millimeter wave transmission.
4 millimeter.
And it affects the oxygen. It affects the oxygen uptake ability of your blood at the mitochondrial level. Hospitals are already using 5G for data imaging and imaging of the MRIs and whatnot. So you're taking someone with what I believe to be the common flu, although a different strain, and you're putting them in a hospital setting with labored breathing, maybe COPD or the flu, and then you're putting them in 5G, which prohibits the blood from taking the oxygen to the lungs, and you're compounding the problem. Are people dying? Absolutely. Is it a worldwide pandemic, or is it something to collapse the economies of the world? You know,
well, you're assuming that somebody wanted the economy of the world to collapse, and I know the Democrats are hoping for an economic crash they can blame on Donald Trump. But the problem I have is the whole point of 5G is to make money. It's going to be the new cash cow for the cellular industry. And so I know mistakes have been made in the past with things like shoe store fluoroscopes, but I'm having a hard time with this idea that 5G was intentionally set up to deplete the oxygen at the mitochondrial level. Well, first of all, I haven't seen any peer-reviewed studies that indicate that.
Well, if you go to Cambridge.org, they've actually, if you'll go to Cambridge.org and type in 60 gigahertz millimeter wave technology, it is a weapon system. Okay, it is absolutely a weapon system. That's what the sound cannons that the National Guard military are using for crowd dispersal, they're adjustable. You can turn the intensity up, and radiation poisoning, the RF sickness associated with millimeter waves, is the exact symptomology of the COVID-19 flu symptoms, the same symptoms of radio frequency sickness as you have with COVID-19. On top of that, Michael,
you seem to be confusing ionizing radiation with non-ionizing radiation.
No, not really, because it's millimeter wave radiation, and it is it's a radio frequency, and it's bad for your health. Now, as far as money making, well, let's see. So far, Michael, they have put in $2 trillion. And Dustin is waiting for his $1,200 stimulus check. Can you say UBI? And they have another capability of putting $8 trillion more in. Well, we're not really talking money, Michael. It's only $1 billion. I mean, you know, it's chump change. And whether or not they want to collapse it worldwide, if you're going to have a global government with a digital currency of some sort, you've got to collapse all the world's economies. You look at the press conferences that President Trump is giving, if you believe he's president. And interestingly, on the podium, the presidential seal is gone, and Donald Trump looks like a puppy dog that's been beat with a baseball bat. Is he the president? Or
now you're out there saying that he's not really the president anymore.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying that the presidential seal is gone when he's giving his press conferences. Have you not noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've noticed that basically all of the government offices have gone to that unified look of the oval, sign on the back of the wall saying Pentagon or the White House or wherever it is that they're doing the press conference.
Well, we've also got the Secretary of the Navy, and the last time that was mentioned, it was the acting Secretary of the Navy. So my question is, what happened to the Secretary of the Navy? Why do we have an acting Secretary of the Navy with the ships Comfort and Mercy, or whatever it's called, Comfort and whatever the ships are?
Okay, well, we had an
acting secretary.
We had an acting Secretary of the Navy because the last Secretary of the Navy, is no longer doing the job.
Died of coronavirus, I guess.
The new Secretary hadn't been confirmed by Congress. And as a matter of fact, he has now stepped down over that issue of the speech he made in Guam regarding the Theodore Roosevelt. Anyway, let's see.
I think we've lost it, to be truthful, Michael. I think that this is full blown.
We're almost to a commercial break, so let me just sum up here. I'm in agreement that the sum total of electromagnetic radiation that we're exposed to, of all frequencies, is an area of concern, and nobody wants to look at it because there's so much money riding on that technology. I don't know that 5G is any better or worse than others. Like I said, I have not seen any peer-reviewed studies about the so-called impact on oxygen uptake when exposed to 4 millimeter waves. If you look at 4 millimeters may seem like a very small distance to you and I, but to a blood cell or to a mitochondria or even to an oxygen atom, it's a huge, vast wavelength. And I'm not sure it's going to have that.
It's a very short wavelength as well.
It's a short wavelength relative to you, but the travel time is always the same, 186,500 miles per second, give or take. Okay, the speed is always exactly the same.
I'm talking distance. It doesn't travel well, which is why they've got to have it on every street corner.
Well, it doesn't travel well in 5G because virtually anything can stop it. Walls, trees, bushes, and stuff. But the fact of the matter is that the radiosity of a radio signal is higher for the higher frequencies. That's why most radio astronomy is based on, we're doing radio astronomy with millimeter waves. Anyway, listen, John,
find an epidemiologist and ask them about the physical effect of 5G, and they'll tell you.
We got to let you go, John. Got to take a commercial break. Thank you very much. We'll be back with more phone calls. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Apostle in New Jersey. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How are you, Mike?
I'm doing fine.
Mike, I'm glad you made it back to the mainland. And can you do me a favor and wish Claire a Good Friday for me?
I certainly will. She'll be in here in just a few minutes.
Okay, but Dustin in New Jersey was talking about MTA.
Yes.
And I happen to work for MTA.
Okay.
Okay, now granted they were a little laxed at first, but right now they're working on week off schedules. But they're paying me for the week off. So it's really not a bad thing, but the thing is that they're handing out medical masks. And they were handing us the medical masks every day. Well, I guess being of the shortage on them, they were handing us N95 masks at first. Now they're handing us R95s, which is pretty much a construction mask.
Okay.
But they're telling us that we now have to wear these masks for 5 days before they'll issue you a new one. And they're telling us that they have to be cleaned every day. And
Mm.
and so forth. They also, when you come into report to work, they just started implementing infrared temperature checks on people.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're trying to get ahead of the game, but the thing is, when they send you out, if you're going with a partner, they're not keeping the same partner, so they're not able to really isolate. If somebody does get it, they don't know who he was working with because they keep busting up the teams in regards to who's working with who.
No, that's not good. They got to be keeping track of that.
Right. This is something I've emphasized with these people. I've been emphasizing it with them for the past maybe month. But, it's not something that I should have to think about. It's something that management should be thinking about.
I agree.
Right. You know what? I see that they're trying to make an effort, but you know what? It seems to me that we're as relevant as a fart in a hurricane in regards to what's going on here.
Okay. Colorful way of putting it.
Right, but you know what? I'm just being honest in regards to it. But, my wife doesn't want me to go to work. She's saying, what are you doing? I pretty much strip naked and everything goes right into the washing machine every day. Wife does not want anything that I've worn outside in my house, and I don't blame her.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. And we're going to switch over. Actually, we're coming up here on the top of the hour, so we're going to have to take the rest of these phone calls in hour number 2, and then we'll be going with the Lady Claire. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. And for those of you watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire. And we're going to be putting her on the microphone here, but we have a few more calls to get rid of before we can get to her. So let's go to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike.
Mark, are you there?
Mike,
yes.
You hear me?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay, good. I was, listening to Dustin before. A lot of these people don't seem to understand is the importance of building up that immune system. All right? Sunshine, lots of vitamins, lots of, good organic type vitamins, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, non-GMO, preferably organic, lots of seeds and nuts, again, preferably organic. That's I think the answer to this. We got to get out of this thing soon. We cannot just let the country just go to hell like this. We're not going to have a country pretty soon. All right? You need some kind of an economy. We don't have that now. You can't have millions and millions of people going out unemployment like this. It's not going to help. It's not going to only get. And we got to understand something too. Somebody like Fauci wants. And by the way, I think if Trump should replace him with Dr. Ben Carson, like immediately. Fauci wants to wait for a vaccine. He'll be very happy to keep us locked down and wait for that vaccine that Gates and company is going to put out, which I think would be poison. Got all kinds of adjuvants in them. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Adjuvant.
Okay. It's yeah, exactly. And he doesn't mean us any good. These people do not mean us any good. We got to get back to work before that. Got to make it clear. You're not going to force a vaccine in us. You're not going to chip us. You're not going to do anything of the sort. We're free Americans. We have a constitution in this country. And you're not going to push medical tyranny on us. And I don't know whether this virus is manufactured or whether it's natural. I go back and forth. Right now, I think it's probably natural. But whatever it is, these deep staters are waiting for something like this so they can try to push us into their tyrannical state, eventually enslave us, and eventually kill us all, and they think they can turn themselves into robots. That's what their game plan is. That's what these technocrats want to do. And Gates is right at the head of them. And by the way, I made a great YouTube video today. You guys want to go to my YouTube channel. A lot of emotion into it too. So because people got to hear the emotion. I'm not doing it right now with you because I want to keep this, I want to keep it civil and I want to start using bad words. But these
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Oh, it's my first and last name. Well, I'll give my last name, Mark Shearer, and it's got a circle on it and my picture, my ugly mug on it. That's it. That's it. So there are a few of the same name. So just so you see, it's my picture on it. I got a hat on, wearing my sunglasses, and that's it. Okay, I think it's pretty good. I got quite a few. Beg your pardon? Huh?
Can I get you to spell that last name?
Oh, SCH, 2 E's and an R. I got quite a few videos on there. I think you'd like. Huh? Sure.
Here.
Yeah, SCHEER.
Okay.
And I think you'd like these YouTube channels. There's already somebody on there that says they're listeners of your show. That's how they found out about me. So I really think because people got to start speaking out. These people are doing us no good, Mike. They really, I really believe there are evil intentions involved. I think Bill Gates, if you look at his history, I call him a Nazi because that's what a eugenist is, really, a Nazi. He doesn't need the black boots and the black uniform anymore. That's not necessary. He's got the wimpy little voice, wimpy little guy. The same thing with Fauci. That's the new Nazis of today. They were also, I believe, Gates is a pedophile because look at his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Those are facts. His relationship with Epstein after Epstein was convicted, by the way, back in 2006. So I believe on top of everything else, most of these people are not only eugenists, they're not only Nazis, which is really the same thing, but I also believe, and they go back a long way, right, to start a Planned Parenthood, to Margaret Sanger, back to Hitler himself, really, who was actually created, by the way, by these eugenists, except they couldn't control him. Once he got in, he went out of control. So these people are evil, Mike. They have no good intentions for us. They think we're rabble. They think we're all a bunch of misfits and
Untermenschen.
Deplorables. They think we're a bunch of deplorables. That's what they think.
Yes.
We're cattle to them, Mike. But we better wake up and understand who these people are. We better get back to work. We better start eating right. Getting the proper nutrients, building up our immune systems. And we should start arresting people like Gates and stuff and start finding out what really these people are really up to. Personally, if I was president, I'd have Gates, Fauci, and arrested him, shipped off to Gitmo.
Well, you know where Hitler got his inspiration for race hygiene, right?
Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, the American eugenics movement.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised. And by the way, Prescott Bush grandfather, he was involved in this too. So were the Rockefellers, of course. These are really evil people, Mike. People better get it through their heads. We're either going to resist or we're going to roll over on our bellies, like unfortunately Dustin seems to want us to do, and we're going to let them have their way with us. Wake up, folks. Wake up. Still got time. Don't let these people win. If they win, mankind is finished. Period.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to take 2 more phone calls, and then we're going to close the lines here so that the Lady Claire has some time on the microphone. So let's go to Harry in Southeast Indiana. Aloha, Harry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy. Thanks for coming to Indiana. I got 2 topics on my mind. Hey, you're more than welcome. The first one I'd like to talk about is the job participation rate.
Yes.
The numbers are like 60, 63% or something, but that's the working class Americans. But if you put that into the total, it's somewhere around a third. A third of Americans are too young or too old to work. A third is out of work or not participating. And only a third of the people are actually participating and having a job and that sort of stuff. And the other thing I'd like to talk about is the coronavirus. Little do anybody know, except for just my common friends, that this takes an acidic medium to get into the cell, and that's usually induced through the modern diet of acidic acids in this, acids in that as a preservative. But for the people that take on an alkaline diet and throw a teaspoon of baking soda in a bottle of water every morning and alkaline their body, the virus can't impregnate the cells and they don't get infected. So the easiest way to avoid it is just to drink a little bit of baking soda every morning and not drink pop. I mean, it's as simple as that.
All right. Well, thank you. I mean, you're the second person who's brought that idea to my attention. And, of course, I'm a great believer in alkalizing the body to deal with issues like gout. And there's a bottled water product called Essentia, which is a high pH water, but it doesn't have the bad taste of baking soda. They put something else in there to kill the taste.
Well, the problem with baking soda is the sodium the human body needs the bicarbonate to neutralize acid from the diet. And if somebody eats too much or drinks too much acids, they deplete their body of the bicarbonate and it can't neutralize it anymore. And then that's when the illness sets in, whether it's the flu, the coronavirus, or cancer. Cancer is even acidic dependent. You know, if you keep your body alkaline, you don't even get cancer. I mean, the truth is you can avoid nearly all diseases simply by alkalining the diet. And I have quite a bit on my Facebook page, and I'll throw that up on your Facebook page, What Really Happened feed or whatever it is. I have no problem with that.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And our last phone call today is going to be Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good day to you, Michael. You and Claire. Aloha. Yeah, Michael, what's on my mind is, I don't know if you happen to see the news today, all over breaking on 3 networks was, for the first time in over 30 years, they are able to see the Himalaya mountains from India.
Yes.
Because of the smog been listed. So they say now Los Angeles, and I know what's going on with all this weather stuff, but now they're talking there could be a global freezing. I mean, instead of a global warming, now we could go into a mini ice age in the next couple of years. So I don't know. You don't know who to believe with this nonsense, but I wouldn't be surprised. But if they're saying you can see the Himalayas after 30 years in India, you can look out over outside Punjab, India, and you can see the mountain peak. I guess that's good news in some way. As far as that, I want to agree with not the caller before last, the guy that's right. We need to open up this economy, Michael. I think on May 1st, which is May Day, we need to start opening up the economy. On May Day, President Trump is listening. He needs to start opening this economy. I don't want to hear about we got to wait months and months. No, you open the economy slowly but surely now. Like you say, the people are imperative to go like transit and all that. Michael, I've been in transit for 38 years. And I've worked down here for 38 years in transit, okay? There are still people packed on these buses down here that actually are not even wearing masks. So there's videos of the unions that I affiliated with, and guess what? A lot of people are still packing these buses, okay? So listen, what are you going to do? I mean, the virus is the virus, okay? The Chinese, who sent it, we don't know. It had to become from China, I guess. We got to open up the economy. We can't allow this to keep going. we're gonna blow this economy out. It's gonna be crippled for 20 years if they don't open this economy starting May 1st. We got to gradually open up the economy. What I really wanted to talk to you too is about, Michael. There's a few issues that are perturbing to me. First off, the Russia collusion thing that they have with Papadopoulos. Have you seen the videos they showed? This guy was Russian. That was all a hoax. That was a waste of millions and millions of dollars. This Mueller investigation. You get about millions of dollars a mask when that was going on. This impeachment they used against Trump. You get about multiple millions of masks. And let's get to the real thing. And I want the guy in New Jersey to understand this. Okay? Listen, Michael. $300 billion for illegal aliens? You know how many masks that could buy or how many hospitals you could open with $300 billion? How many hospitals you can create in the United States? You can make super hospitals in about 50 states, and each state would have a super hospital. Okay? For all kinds of infectious diseases. But we have the Democratic rat party trying to pump in $300 billion for sanctuary cities for illegal aliens, and so they can vote? No. So the caller that one guy say, well, we got to open up the economy slowly, but we need to open this economy on May 1st, which is May Day. Send a message, President Trump, that you're going to open up this economy slowly but surely, and the $300 billion, they're not going to get it for the demon rat, to give the illegal aliens $300 billion for what, Michael? For what? What is that money going to? For housing? What are these people doing for jobs? If there's so many people laid off for jobs, you got millions of people importing here illegally? This is insanity of biblical proportion, the way I look at it. Now, what I wanted to talk to, Michael, is about, now, if this is true, that you can see the Himalayas and the air quality is getting better and all this, but the virus is floating all over the place, what is that telling you about what the environment's up to, what Mother Nature's doing? If the environment's supposedly healing itself from smog and all that, but in the meantime, you got a virus running rampant. I don't understand something here. I'm losing this. In L.A. and Beijing and all these cities got cleaner air now after, 30 days, 40 days?
Yes.
Their air quality's improved drastically? Something's going on here. Something's not right here, and this is nonsensical. Now, Michael, let's get to the real fact, and I want Dustin to hear this. Dustin, most of the people who are passing away are over 82 years old. It was on the news today on Breitbart. 82 years old is the average person who's passing away. Not that I know there's a virus out there. It's horrible, horrific. It's horrible. But most of the people are 82 years old, and most of them are in nursing homes. They're already going into hospice, and they're 82 years old on the average. Not saying that young people don't get it and die. It's horrifying. It is a horrible virus, just like tuberculosis, just like other diseases, the measles, the mumps. They're all horrible. Young kids are dying from drug addiction. The people who are doing vaping. You had, how many, 600, 800 people died, young teenagers were smoking vaping last year, and they died in 2020 from vaping, Michael? It's horrible. All this stuff is horrible. But let's get to the real fact of the matter. Most of these people are dying, are in their 80s, Michael, or 82 years old. And I'm not trying to be biblically about this, Michael, but in the Bible it basically says 70. If you make 70 years, anything over that's a blessing. I mean, everybody wants to live to 100. There's no question about that. And I believe we're going to be to that point soon. But what I saw in the news today, 82 years old is the average person that's passing away. 90%, over 90% of the people who are leaving are not in their in their 80s, early 80s, excuse me. So I don't know. I don't understand what's going on with the air quality. Of course, the fog and all that seems like it's lifting. Now they're talking about the Earth's going to cool off now. You might have a cooling period now for 20, 30 years. The sun's not acting out with sunspots. Who knows what's going to happen with the environment? But I disagree with that caller before the last that we have got to start opening this economy up somewhat.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do.
They can't go on, Michael. And Joe Biden, Michael, do you see the ad that Joe Biden, they ran against Joe Biden today? Trump's running against him? He's literally kissing his butt. Joe Biden is literally on tape. The ad that Donald Trump's running all over the United States now, it was on the news just now, that there's an ad out. I don't know if you have a chance to see it. Biden, you can see Biden's literally licking China and saying how great they are, and Russia's bad, 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 but China's great, great, great. Wait a minute here. What's going on in this bumbling imbecile Biden? They want to make this guy the president of the United States? Are they kidding me? The guy can't even remember his last name. He's got a son that got kicked out of the Navy. He's had 3 women knocked up over the last 4 years. It's unbelievable. And they want this guy, and he's he's a great role model. They got a woman now that's trying to sue him for sexual harassment. I mean, this guy's as bad as Weinstein in some ways, it seems like. So, no, Michael, I agree with that one call. You had a couple good callers that said, and talked about transportation, all that. Yeah, he's right. Transportation, they got to do something better for that. That's for sure. And, you know, a lot of the buses now, Michael, I don't know if you noticed, they're not running diesel anymore. They're running natural gas.
Yes.
Almost 80% of the buses now are running natural gas. They don't run diesel. Diesel's almost obsolete, believe it or not. So that's just another thing I can throw out at you. But a lot of people are getting these county buses, and they're still...
Tom, okay,
Yes,
you're throwing out a lot of stuff at us, and, you know, we're trying to keep the phone call short here. So we're coming up on another commercial break here, and so I'm going to say goodbye, and thank you very much for the phone call. We are going to close the phone lines so that when we come back from this next commercial break, the Lady Claire will have a clear and uninterrupted whatever we're going to have here. Okay. I haven't seen her talking points yet. But meanwhile, of course... again, please try and keep the phone calls very short. I don't know that we'll reopen the lines today, but for future reference, keep it short. Don't just keep throwing more and more things out there. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And hello, America. Welcome back to our show. And now we're going to turn it over to the lovely Lady Claire. So, Lady Claire, take it away.
Thanks so much, Mike. And thank you for inviting me to be with your listeners and your viewers today. I'd like to start by wishing my Christian brothers and sisters a very lovely Easter. To our Jewish friends, a lovely end of Passover, which happens on the 16th of this month. To our Muslim friends, a lovely Ramadan, which starts 22 April. And our Hindu friends who celebrate Akshaya Tritiya on 26 April. Now, having said that, let's talk about some of the foul-ups, bleeps, and blunders that you're probably not hearing about because it's all COVID-19 all the time. One of the most important that you're not hearing about, most likely, is that India and Pakistan are now locked in a border fight amid the coronavirus concern globally. Now, Pakistan is saying it shot down an Indian drone in Kashmir region as the troops were engaging in the worst cross-border clashes in a couple of years. Folks, this is getting ugly and quickly. And what I'm hoping is going to happen, courtesy telephone, Vlad, the non-impaler Putin, and Sergei Lavrov, this is going to get ugly unless someone steps into the plate and says, guys, nuclear-armed countries, can we kind of take a breath here? I mean, Mike, where did you hear about this on national news? You didn't,
there's
right?
nothing on national news, but all coronavirus all the time. Yeah. You know, and, you know, what a great day the stock market had yesterday.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. And
and today is the 50th anniversary of the launching of Apollo 13. They ran that one as well.
Okay. Unfortunately, whatever international prestige and power the U.S. had in terms of diplomacy has been absolutely abnegated by these horrendous wars and war crimes which just don't seem to stop, folks. Putin and Sergei Lavrov are a couple of adults in the room. And I sure hope to heck that they're working those phones like right now and saying, guys, deep breath, little bit of confidence building here. Because if you look at the way in which certain mutual defense treaties are written, we're supposed to help India, and China is supposed to help Pakistan. Do you realize what a war this could be? So I am hoping these guys are going to be on the case and get this nastiness absolutely closed down before it gets horrific. I don't want to wake up Monday morning to a full-on world war. And Mike, that's where we could very possibly be.
Okay, we did that one.
Okay, all righty.
So let's scroll down a little bit more.
Okay, thank you for that. And what has happened? Now, I'd like to look at this. We talked about it a little bit. This came from Global Research, another very well contributed to blog. If you haven't reached out and looked at it, I suggest you do. And every time you see a blog author by the name of Pepe Escobar, read it, look at it. This guy is light years ahead in terms of his understanding about how the real world works. And he talks about who's going to be profiting from this pandemic and what may be happening. And so what he is predicting, Mike, is that the social credit score, which has been done in China,
Yes.
is going to wind up right here. And you will have your vaccines, whether you want them or not. There will be no getting away from that. And if you don't, you can't work, you can't earn money, or you're going to be on the federal dole, and the federal government will command that you have this stuff done. And he says that that's what the elites are looking at right now. That's why we're hearing Bill Gates talking about a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus, et cetera,
we're being treated like livestock.
Yeah, you
can eat this, you can't eat that.
Yeah.
You must have that drug, you can't have that other drug.
Yeah. And he also talks about BlackRock, which is going to be taking over some of these federalized investments. And he talks about them living in a parallel universe or alternative universe. And so what has happened has been that Wall Street has been turned into a hedge fund. What are your thoughts on that?
The Federal Reserve is definitely growing in power.
Yeah.
They're going into the bond market big time. They're buying up assets with instantly created money.
Yeah.
Which goes on their balance sheet. So it's technically the Federal Reserve is borrowing money out of thin air, which is eventually charged to the American people.
Yeah.
And then they use that instant money to buy up the real assets of the country. And it's a grab for the real wealth of the country.
Right.
And it's definitely, they're crossing that line between being a privately owned banking concern and being part of the government.
Yep.
Anyway, we have to take another break here for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words. And welcome back to our show. And Claire, you were talking about BlackRock.
Yeah, it is at this point the largest money manager on the planet, and they manage assets of over 170. Let me backtrack over that number. 170 pension funds, banks, foundations, insurance companies, and in fact, a great deal of the money in private equity and hedge funds. Now, they're promising to be transparent, whatever that means, when they're buying these securities and manage those dodgy SPVs on behalf of the Treasury. Now, this company was founded in 1988 by Larry Fink, and it may not be as big as Vanguard, but it is the top investor in Goldman Sachs along with Vanguard and State Street. And I looked at this number, Mike, and I was just gobsmacked. $6.5 trillion in assets, bigger than Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Deutsche Bank combined.
Well, heck, my wallet's bigger than Deutsche Bank right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is going to be an absolute killing of the most interesting kind. And what are the little people getting out of this? A minor $1,200 check per person for a month. And Mike, anyone knows that based on median income salary, typically the average American family needs $12,000 to survive for 2 months. Boy, it's a lot of money.
Even in Canada, they got $4,000.
Yeah, you know. And what Secretary Mnuchin was able to say with a straight face is that it allows them a mere 10% of what is actually needed. So the American taxpayer at the end of this is going to be left with a tsunami of debt while selected Wall Street players grab the whole loot, part of the unparalleled transfer of wealth upward. We're going to see bankruptcies en masse of small and medium-sized businesses.
And people, ordinary people are going to go into personal bankruptcies. I mean, if we were still living on Oahu, that $1,200 check wouldn't even cover our rent for 1 month.
Oh, no, not at all.
Not even close.
Oh, no. And what the letter to what Fink sent to his shareholders kind of gave the game away. And what he said in this letter was, I believe we are on the edge of a fundamental reshaping of finance. And almost as though he were doing it on cue, he said that in the near future and sooner than most people anticipate, there will be a significant reallocation of capital. Now, he was referring originally to climate change, but now that refers to COVID-19 and what the response from governments around the world has been. Now, Mike, we've had pandemics that have come and gone.
Yes.
Okay, I remember them.
Yes.
I remember as a kid getting the Salk vaccine against polio in a sugar cube. We've
Yes.
had this.
They broke a glass thing and scratched my shoulder when I got it. I didn't even get the sugar.
Ah, poor baby.
Not fair.
No,
Not fair.
Just
Okay.
not fair. We've had them, but what has happened that's been extraordinary with this pandemic is how it is being used by governments around the world to become more dystopian, if you will, more draconian in the way that they want to manage their people, particularly the people who are maybe not making the big bucks.
Yes.
Okay? And the fact of almost needing an internal passport to travel, which shouldn't be that way for Americans. I think we're going to see more traffic stops, more your papers, please, even for driving checks than we've ever seen before, especially if you're driving across country and out of state. I mean, now that we're back on the mainland, there are places I want to go. There are people, I want to see and talk to, and things I think we both want to do.
Yeah, and gas is very inexpensive for a change, but there's no place we can go.
No, not really, because everything is
shut down. Everything is shut down.
And I was complaining to my family over the weekend. Whoever thinks that salon stylists are non-essential people are people who do not have thinning hair or older hair. And our niece, who's exactly 10, got it, and she laughed. But I don't know if this little independent entrepreneur we've been going to is even going to be able to be around. I don't know what kind of a relationship she has with her landlady. She could be gone. A lot of the small shops that we patronize and like to patronize may well be gone. And that's a pretty scary thought when you've got a lot of confident people who spend a lot of time to learn what they do and do it brilliantly, and they're not going to be around anymore, And I'm wondering if there is going to be sort of a universal credit and how much that is going to be. But if you are applying for that, that means that you're going to have to do what the federal government and state government tell you to do 24/7. And I don't quite know how prepared I am to do that.
Well, I get a very wretchy kind of a feeling thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, by the way, we went to our local big box yesterday, and the experience was nowhere near as draconian as I thought it might be, because they had tried rolling out certain things like only one person to a cart, right?
Yeah.
And that couples could not shop together unless each had a cart.
Well, they didn't do that at this store.
No, they didn't. They were very nice. We're kind of getting to know the store because the footprint is how big is that store, Mike? What'd you guess? 100,000 square
it's
feet?
Big. It's a Walmart supercenter.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Walmart and eBay's basically lifesavers in this part of Indiana.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, we went in, we got what we needed, and we got out, and it was not an unpleasant shopping experience. I was kind of prepared for it to be, but it wasn't, which I thought was a good thing, And to those of you who have not yet thought about starting to prep,
you're too late.
Yeah. No, and I mean, what I'm starting to do, it's just this little family of two over here, okay? So what I am doing, and I think it will work for a lot of smaller families, more nuclear families, get a couple of things you need that are a little bit of a stock up every time you go, so that you don't have this humongous cart that, is going to take you hours to unload when you get back. But a little bit every time is not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all, And another thing that I wanted to to discuss. Apparently, there's been a new wave of outbreaks of coronavirus aboard the USS Nimitz.
Yes.
And I would like to hope first prayers for the people who are affected, their families, and people who care about them. And I hope that our military is going to do a very intelligent job of taking care of these people.
Well, they haven't yet. I mean, the crew that is cleaning up the Theodore Roosevelt were told to make face masks out of old T-shirts.
Oh, my. You're not kidding me.
I'm not kidding you. And
Okay.
as of last count, 412 members of the Theodore Roosevelt's crew tested positive.
That is bad. That is really, really
So they
bad.
fired the captain.
Yeah, it's like, hello. And this man, apparently, Crozier, was very, very, very respected. Very respected. I'd like to mop over to Yemen, about which we are hearing nothing quite deliberately. And apparently, Yemen now has its first COVID-19 case. And officials say brace for millions.
Now, these are people whose medical conditions are already fragile
They're compromised.
because of cholera,
Mm-hmm.
starvation,
Yeah.
stress.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and because when we hear about older people who die of complications, they talk about underlying medical situations. Most Yemenis right now have underlying medical situations brought about by starvation, disease, and disease-borne water. Mr. President, please get the U.S. troops out of there right now.
there are no U.S. troops in Yemen. It's the Saudis are our proxies there.
Yes, but U.S. troops are advising,
Yes.
and U.S. troops
They're
are...
advisors.
Yes, they're advisors.
That's how we got stuck in Vietnam.
Yeah, and I would like to suggest this war has not gone anywhere near where the Saudis have thought and
Oh,
told
they thought it
President-
was going to be over in just a few weeks.
It's been 5 years.
Yes.
5 years, guys. The one thing you have to remember, the Houthis, however you look at them, are fighting for their ancestral land. You know, if you got invaded by a neighboring power, would you fight back? What
I
these
would.
people are doing, you know. And it was also interesting to note that the Saudi royal family has now been infected by COVID-19.
Something like 150 members of the royal family.
Yeah,
And they're getting the VIP treatment.
of course they are.
And the lesser officials are getting okay treatment.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody else is getting the placebos.
Yeah, I'm quite sure. But there's a biblical injunction in some spiritual traditions. It's called karma. But I seem to remember a Bible verse that says, that ye sow, that ye shall also reap.
Mm-hmm.
And one has to wonder how many of the older and already medically infirm members of the Saudi royal family may not make it.
Well, that would be King Solomon. I
Yeah.
mean, he's in pretty bad shape to begin with. That's
Yeah.
why Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is sort of running the show right now. But even he's down with this COVID-19.
I'd like to be a citizen of a country that did not participate in war crimes. I really would like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sweetheart, we're too broke and too old to make that happen. And I remember a time in my life when I couldn't possibly entertain the notion that this country was complicit in war crimes. And then the Vietnam War happened, you know.
Yes.
And I remember kids who were my age, 17, 18 at the time, who didn't come back from their service or didn't come back all the way.
Yes.
PTSD, terrible mental condition.
Drug
and-
addiction.
Yeah. And I knew a number who committed suicide, a friend of mine. And this guy was brilliant. He was a brilliant musician. Came back and couldn't deal with what he had been ordered to do. And he did follow his orders. And I'd really like the United States not to be committing war crimes. But I will tell this administration and every other one that's going to supplant it, and it's it's window dressing. It's like Thanksgiving in New York with all the great stores and the beautiful windows that are created to put you in the mood to shop for Christmas.
Yes.
Successive administrations are window dressing for what the moneyed want to see happen.
Yes.
I wish.
Which is, we want that money over there
Yeah.
to be brought over here and put in our pocket.
Yes. You know, when Karl Marx made the observation that all wars are economic in nature, this guy was absolutely correct.
He pegged it.
I mean, you know, how do you say it's not? I mean, you can cloak it with sort of idealism in my country, right or wrong. No. What they want has to do with the money. Do you think that the U.S. would have invaded Iraq if Iraq didn't have such reserves of oil? Do you think they would be trying to destabilize Venezuela right now if Venezuela did not have, I believe, one of the largest preserves of oil on the planet?
Well, it's not just access to the oil, it's what currency that oil is sold for.
Yeah.
That's what prompted the Iraq War, was when Saddam Hussein went to the United Nations and got permission to sell his oil for the euro.
Yeah.
And that's when Tony Blair flew to Texas and had that meeting with George W. Bush.
Yep.
And a year later screaming, nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
they invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
They lynched Saddam Hussein. And Iraq's oil went back on the market for the U.S. dollar.
Absolutely.
Because that's what's propping up the value of the U.S. dollar internationally. You have to have dollars to buy natural resources. And without that, our economy would have collapsed a long time ago, but it looks like it's getting ready to do that anyway.
Yeah, Michael, I have a question to ask you. It looks as though the Chinese are getting ready to fulfill their development deal with Iraq very soon.
Yes, they've got a tremendous deal going with Iraq. The United States is very unhappy. Iraq's government is saying it's none of your business.
Yeah.
So are we looking at yet another invasion of Iraq to put in yet another regime that will make stink face at China and do all the development deals with American companies?
That's a pretty horrendous situation to think about.
I mean, how many times have we invaded Iraq so far? There was Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Then there was Desert Stomp.
Yeah.
Then there was Desert. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. We're at Desert. I have no idea right now. And it's very interesting to look at President Trump's policy on Iraq. It looks as though, I mean, one could view it in one or two ways. One way is, I don't have a clue, and he would like to pull out of Iraq, but his advisors are extremely opposed to that and very militaristic in their viewpoint. I don't know that he does have a plan to leave Iraq. And I think that all the stink face we're getting at Iran is to try to get the American people to go for yet another, I think you're correct on this, another invasion of Iraq, on the pretense that Iran is fighting us there and we have to fight back. Now, the one thing that I seem to remember happened last summer was that Iranian diplomats were assured that if the United States attacked Iran, they would not be fighting the United States alone. Do you remember that summer of last year?
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, am I the only person who doesn't have selective memory disorder on this?
Well, the Russians would come in and they would do in Iran what they did in Syria.
Yeah.
You know, which is they would simply prevent the war from being able to progress. They'd wear the United States down by attrition.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
We simply fought until everybody lost the enthusiasm to fight anymore.
Yeah.
And we lost that war. We're losing in Afghanistan. We're losing in Syria.
Yep.
And Russia's prepared to do exactly the same thing in Iran if we're stupid enough to try and go in there. But we have all of these war hawks, you know, who are not going to be on the front lines themselves or their families.
No.
You know, it's those poor kids. We take all the poor kids. In fact, we've got all these newly unemployed because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Let's sign them up for the military right now, put them in uniform and ship them on over, you know, let them get killed off seizing other people's oil lands for us. And, you know, they were going to die anyway, so we might as well get some value out of them.
Right.
Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. Back to the last segment of our program after these 2 words. And And welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program today. And before we do our final holiday sign-off here, a couple more little news stories. As I mentioned before, as of last count, the last report that I had, 416 sailors on the Theodore Roosevelt have tested positive for the disease. That's more than half the Navy's coronavirus cases. They're all on that one aircraft carrier. And it is one of 4 aircraft carriers with confirmed cases of COVID-19 on board. And, of course, the Navy is not handling the situation very well at all. The attitude seems to be cover it up and don't talk about it, but don't do anything about it either. As I mentioned before, the crew that is trying to disinfect the Theodore Roosevelt right now, we're told to make face masks out of T-shirts. Which, I mean, the weave on a T-shirt is just not sufficient to be protective at all.
Oh, heck no.
So they're going to wind up with a lot more very, very sick people. And so that's 4 of our carriers are, for lack of a better word, they're plague ships. And anyway, apparently former Fox News host Bill O'Reilly is in a little bit of trouble. He came out with a statement saying that many people dying of coronavirus were on their last legs anyway, which is very heartless.
Yes.
So he drew some flack on that one.
And should have.
And should have.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden's coronavirus advisor, Ezekiel Emanuel, brother of Rahm Emanuel, was saying that living too long is also a loss. And he once wrote a piece titled, "Why I Hope to Die at 75," and argued that living too long is a loss. So now we're talking about euthanasia mandated by the government. When you're too old to work, when you're too old to be a profit center, well, that's just going to be that.
Yep.
All righty. Now, Tucker Carlson last Tuesday said that data that he's looked at suggests the peak of the coronavirus epidemic may have already passed 5 days before that. So that would have been Thursday of the week before.
Mike, what numbers is he looking at? And is there any way for us to kind of get our hands around where we can find those?
Well, finding accurate numbers is proving to be more and more difficult. In fact, our control room was saying they were trying to reconcile the state totals for cases and deaths with the national totals, and they don't really line up. But again, people aren't actually going on out and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're using computer models, and the models have been way off right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're almost at the end of the show, so once again, we'd like to wish everybody Good Friday, Happy Pesach, Happy Easter, Happy Ramadan, and hope you have a nice, relaxing virtual weekend with the family. Okay? Anything you want to add?
I think you said it all, dear. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's why I get the little bucks here. Okay. So enjoy the holiday and enjoy the weekend, and do keep those masks on and those gloves on. It looks like this COVID-19 just isn't the serious problem that we were told it was going to be. But on the other hand, these same precautions are going to help you against the regular seasonal flu that's making the rounds. Okay, there's the music. Time for us to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Stay tuned for John Stedner. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please call your local talk radio station and ask them to carry the Republic Broadcasting programming. We need more affiliates. Please donate. We really do need your help. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.